Hello, and today we're going to talk about building a model rocket. Rockets are a great way to learn about math and science, and everybody loves a rocket. And we can think of rockets as our bridge to space. We have to get to space somehow. And so the rocket is our bridge. And over here to your left, we see the Saturn V moon rocket. That's the rocket that bridged that gap between Earth and the moon. And back in the late 60s and the early 70s, American astronauts landed on the moon and walked on the moon. Got a lot of science from that, and so much technology was developed through the building of the Saturn V moon rocket. And today we're going to build something not quite as complex, but just as interesting and just as fun. And I hope you enjoy the build. So today we're going to start with a very simple rocket. This is the Estes, Rascals, and Jinx model rocket set. And so it's basically already kind of built for you, but this is kind of like an introduction for you. And this is, you can buy this at Hobby Lobby, and I believe the price is $22. So it's a good way to get into the hobby. So what we're going to do is just kind of open up the box, and we'll start here. So we have, this is a little Rascal rocket, and then here's the Jinx rocket. Next, it comes with a launch pad, and we'll just kind of put that here, and we'll get to building on that. Comes with another packet. It's got the parachute and the instructions. And then we have the launch rod, and Estes loves their glue and tape. They like to tape everything in the boxes. So this is our launch rod assembly that the rocket travels on when it initially takes off. So there are our parts. So what we'll do is kind of start with our instructions and open them up. We also have our parachutes, 2 parachute packs here. Several sets of instructions. This is for the launch pad, which we will get into. This is the building of the controller that actually launches the rockets. And then we have the instructions for the rocket. To make sure we have all our parts. Let me go ahead and take this apart. Have to be careful cutting the tape. I don't want to cut too much into the rocket. There we go. So here's our rocket, our fuselage and fins. And here's our nose cone, and we have that, plus we have our parachute. And that's the main parts that we have on our instructions, so we have everything that we need. So talking a little bit about the rocket itself, some of the engineering behind how a rocket actually flies. You can imagine if I put all this is the shock cord. This is kind of what keeps the rocket together after it comes apart in flight. When the parachute ejects, the shock cord keeps everything together as it parachutes back down to the ground. So if you look at the rocket, this is the same basic function as the large Saturn V moon rocket. The Saturn V moon rocket was 363 feet tall. This rocket's a little over a foot. So, but the physics are the same. It works just the same as the Saturn V moon rocket. So if we look at the assembly of the rocket, this is our fin can, is what they call it. And inside that fin can is what they call the thrust structure. And the thrust structure is where the motor goes in, and once it ignites, all the thrust from the motor is transferred through the thrust structure into the fin can, into the fuselage, and then it launches into the air. The fins help to maintain stable flight, and the nose cone is aerodynamic in shape, and it helps it to slice through the atmosphere as it propels upward. And then once it gets to its apogee, or its furthest point away from the earth, and starts to come back down, the nose cone will eject, and it will pull the parachute out. We will demonstrate that here in a little bit. I have a see-through rocket, and you can see how all the components work together. You have the parachute, the nose cone. This is some wadding paper, and it's kind of a flame retardant paper, so when the ejection charge comes from the motor, it will not melt the parachute. And then, of course, the nose cone will come out, and then the parachute will unfold. This one does not have a shock cord on it, but otherwise they would all fall down together. So let's get started on building our rocket. The instructions say that we need to attach the parachute to the nose cone. So let's cut the bag, and be careful not to cut into the parachute. And this is all trash. We can throw this away. It's always a good idea to always replace the cap onto the X-Acto knife. It is very, very sharp. So here we have our parachute. Kind of unfold it. The way these parachutes are made, they have 3 different strings. And the way Estes does their strings, there's one that goes across like this, and then the other 2 are like this on the ends. So you just kind of take these together like this, keep them all together like so. And then you pull the parachute from the tip like so. Make sure all the lines are straight, and the ends on the parachute side, you can see they're all basically even. So all the shroud lines are pulling equally, and that's important. So now then, the instructions say that we form a little loop here. And we will kind of square them up a little bit. Let me do that again. I got them a little crossed over. Go. That's one thing about building a model rocket. You have to have patience sometimes. And as we get into more and more advanced rockets, again, I'm going to pull on the cords. Make sure everything's even, like so. We'll have to be gluing some parts together, and we have to have patience to let them dry. But that'll be on upcoming videos. So now the instructions say to pass this through the nose cone, and there's a little eyelet here on the end of the nose cone. And we're going to pass this through. Kind of square it up a little bit. I think one of them actually went down into the cone. There we go. Just like so. Now we form a little bit larger loop. Like so, and we're going to pass the parachute through this loop, just like this, just like that. And then pull, kind of make sure the lines stay even. You know, I see one line that's kind of hanging out by itself. So pull that tight, just like that. Again, make sure your parachute is basically even and the lines are all straight, and they are. So that looks really good and ready for flight. So that's what our instructions are saying. So like I said, this is a very easy rocket to build. It's a beginner rocket, and so a lot of the stuff has already been built for you. But this is a great way to get started in actually launching the rocket. That's where the fun part is. All right, so our instructions say we need to prepare the rocket for flight, and so we're going to insert some wadding material. Now this wadding, it's just very fine tissue paper, but it's been treated with a flame retardant, and so this will go between the rocket motor and the parachute, and it kind of has twofold action with it. One is to protect the parachute from melting from the ejection charge, and next it is to act like a piston, pushing the parachute and the nose cone away from the fuselage of the rocket. I probably get 2 or 3 pieces of wadding, like so. And you basically wad each piece up and put it down into the tube. Again, this kind of seals the tube and acts like a piston when the ejection charge fires. Okay, got to push that down there with my finger, about finger depth. Now next on the instructions it says to fold the parachute and insert it into the rocket. Now there are many ways to fold a parachute and none of them are wrong, but this is kind of the way that I was taught growing up, launching rockets. And again, it depends, you know, as you get into the hobby, if you get into making real big rockets, you'll want the parachute to come out, unfold slower. But with a small rocket like this one, we want the parachute to just quickly come on out. So what we're going to do is kind of square the parachute up like this to get squared away. And then we're going to start folding in like this a little bit at a time, and fold again. So fold again. So now basically your parachute looks something like this, like that. Make sure the lines are all straight, they look good. Next you kind of come down and you take about halfway and you fold back in like this, like so. And then you fold over a couple of more times, like this, just like that. And then maybe fold over again one more time. So basically what happens when we'll fold over again like this, but when the rocket ejects the nose cone of the parachute, it folds out like that, and then basically when the nose cone pulls out, you can see it pulling on the shroud lines, and then it just pulls out the parachute. And that's why I fold it that way. But this rapidly gets the parachute out of the rocket and unfolded. So we kind of start like that, just like that. Fold again. We just kind of roll the parachute up like so. And so now we have a kind of a neat little package. And then this will go down into the rocket. We'll insert our shock cord. And again, like I said, there's no wrong way to fold a parachute. And we'll put that in there like that. Now when you put the nose cone on, you see some of the shock cord is visible. You don't want that to wrap around on the outside of the nose cone. You want that all folded in, so there's be nothing that will restrict the nose cone from popping off. You can kind of feel if it slides in and out real easy. If it doesn't slide in and out real easy, then you know the shock cord is in between the nose cone and the fuselage of the rocket. But this is our rocket. It's structurally ready to go. Next in our instructions, it says it's time to put in the motor. And so I have a motor here. These motors are really pretty cool things. So they generate a fair amount of thrust. It will fire for a couple of seconds. And I have a cutaway of the motor here. And so the way it's built, it's a solid propellant motor. So it's sort of like gunpowder, but more controlled flame. And so you see the end of the motor here. So this is the nozzle. And then the propellant is located here. So when it ignites, it runs through the propellant. And then once that's ends, then it comes to the blue part. This is a smoke screen or smoke trail. So as the rocket gets way up in the air, you can follow the smoke trail to keep eyes on the rocket. And then there's kind of this yellow region here is kind of a delay charge. And so it may wait, a half a second or a second, depending on the motor. And then this white part up here, that's an ejection charge. And that's the part that it literally blows up and blows out the parachute and the nose cone. So that's how the rocket motor is put together. And again, all the thrust that this little motor generates runs through the thrust structure, through the fuselage of the rocket, and then that's what propels the rocket up into the air. And there was a gentleman 400 years ago named Isaac Newton, and he came up with several equations, and one of them was every action there's an equal and opposite reaction. So when this motor fires and the gases are shooting out this way or downward, the equal and opposite reaction would be that the rocket goes up this way. And so we credit that to Sir Isaac Newton 400 years ago. That's pretty cool. So next, our instructions say we need to insert our motor. So you can see the end of the rocket motor, the aft end. This little metal piece here is called the retaining clip for the motor. And you just make sure that the rocket nozzle is on this end of the rocket, okay, pointing outward. I'm going to slide that in, and the retaining clip snaps into place, holding the rocket motor in place. Okay, next, now that we have the motor in place, we're going to install the igniter. And this is two wires. And in the very tip of the wire is a little nichrome wire that gets very hot. And there's kind of a coating on it. And think of it as a sparkler that we wave around during 4th of July. It'll kind of spark like that when the current goes through it. And that's what will ignite the propellant in the rocket motor. So the way we do that is we simply insert the igniter into the motor. And then the kit comes with these little plugs to help hold the igniter in place. So we'll insert this, keeping the igniter kind of pushed down on the igniter, make sure it's fully seated into the rocket motor, because if it's not, it will not properly ignite the engine. Just like that. So now our rocket motor is ready to be launched, and the rocket is now structurally ready. All right, so we're going to put that off to our side. Next in the kit, we have our launch pad. So we'll start working on that. This is our blast deflector. And we have more tape to cut through. it may be a good idea, if you're uncomfortable using a knife like this, an X-Acto blade, you may want your parents to help you cut using that tool. Again, it is very, very sharp. This part of the launch system is our controller, and this is what we will use to actually launch the rocket. And this is part of the launch system. Of course, we have more tape. There we go. I think we're through with the blade now. And this is covers the end of the launch rod to kind of so people won't poke their eye out with the rod. And here's part of the what they call the standoff that goes on the blast deflector. It just kind of slips in, and then you rotate it like so. And so now that's complete. Next, we put our legs on, and again they just slide right in. Some people glue them, but I don't, because it's easier to transport. It's very easy to take apart. And you can actually develop a rocket box. So you can have your rocket, your motors, everything that you'll need for a successful day out playing. And this will slide in. This one's going to be a little tight. Let's try this one. And this one is also tight. I thought I was through with my X-Acto knife, but I'm not. So sometimes they need to be cleaned up a little bit. I think the problem was I was putting it on upside down. So there we go. There's our base of the rocket, our launch pad, I mean. And you can see that there are two different sizes of holes. One is for like a 1/8 inch rod, and one is for a larger rod that would launch a much larger rocket. But for the one we're building today, and most of the kits, we just use the 1/8 inch launch hole. These are this is the launch rod. It comes in 3 different pieces. So that is kind of a structural weakness in parts of the rod. But you can see one of the rod has 2 ends that are pointed, and the other 2 rods have one that's sealed on each end, and it's open on one end. So what we'll do is slide this in like this. And sometimes it's meant to fit snug. Sometimes you may have to tap it a little bit, but that feels pretty good. Now we'll do the other one, like for the end with the hole in it. And this one definitely wants to be a little tight. So what I'm going to do is take my little Phillips head screwdriver and kind of run it through there like that. Maybe open the hole up just a little bit, trying to remove any shavings that may be on there. Let's see if this works. And it did. So now we need to tap it back in so it's fully seated. And that looks good. So now we have our launch rod. So what we're going to do is put this launch rod, unscrew the wing nut a little bit, and insert the launch rod into the launch pad and tighten the wing nut. Now, the beauty of this is you can loosen the wing nut, and you can, if the wind's blowing real strong, you can tilt the launch pad or the launch rod into the wind for a better launch. You won't lose your rocket as easy. And then the blast deflector goes on, like so. And we have our rocket. It's already ready to go. And you can see this black strip here. It's got 2 holes. This is what they call the launch lug. And so you'll pass the launch rod through the launch lug. And this helps guide the rocket in its first few feet of flight. And then you have the little red standoff, and that keeps the rocket off of the blast deflector, and keep the wires from touching the blast deflector. Now the rocket is ready to be launched, and next we need to build our controller that we will actually use to ignite the propellant in the rocket motor. So it has 2 little micro clips on it. These 2 will actually connect to the igniter on the motor. And then it has a safety key. And once we put the safety key in, and it will show that the controller is ready to launch or not. We're going to have to unscrew 2 Phillips head screws. And it's a number 1 Phillips head. All right, so this is the inside of the controller. You can see it requires 4 AA batteries. And you just follow how they go in. They will be in series. All right, so the batteries are in place. Put the cap back on. Now these are kind of like sheet metal screws, and you're screwing into a plastic. And so if they start going in wrong or crooked, you won't be able to do this too many times, because the sheet metal or the metal screws will strip out the plastic threads. So typically what I like to do is kind of run it backwards a little bit, like I'm unscrewing it until I feel like it's seated, and then I start to screw back in, like so. And it doesn't have to be very tight, just a little snug. That's all you need. There we go. Now then, to check that the controller is actually working, that the batteries you have enough battery power, what we're going to do is we're going to take the micro clips and we're going to connect them together, like so. See that? And then we're going to put the safety key into the controller, and we'll put that in the slot or in the hole. We'll press down on the controller. If everything is working properly and there's good continuity all through the system, you'll see the red light shining. So that all looks good. Now we take our safety key back out. Now to kind of demonstrate this a little bit, we will not go through the full process. Again, we're inside and we do not want to launch a rocket inside. That would not be very good. Now we've got the controller all situated and ready to go. I want to show you how to connect the micro clips onto the igniter. So one micro clip goes there on that one, and the other micro clip goes onto the other wire. Make sure that the clips do not touch or touch the metal base or the blast deflector, because that will cause a short. Next, to make sure the system is ready to go, we put the safety key back into the controller. We press down on the controller and we should get a red light. And we do. Now all we have to do is do the countdown, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and press the button and the rocket will launch. Again, make sure the clips do not touch and that the clips do not touch the metal blast deflector. Now I'm going to demonstrate to you exactly how this works. So I have another igniter here, and what I'm going to do is connect the leads to the igniter, and we're going to I'll show you what happens when the igniter lights. Again, my leads are not touching. I'm going to put the safety key in. If I get a red light, everything is ready to go, and I do. So do a countdown, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, press the button, and there it goes. And that's how it ignites the propellant in the rocket. So it's pretty cool. Actually melted my little table a little bit. That's all right. So I hope you enjoyed this building of this beginner rocket. Again, it's a great hobby to get into. It teaches you so much about the physics and STEM principles. And it's just fun to play with rockets. Who doesn't love a rocket? Enjoy. Clear skies.